Hello, my name is Anna Rose, and I'm the mother of a beautiful human being called Marcus, who had a very rough time, as well as some good times in his life, but too many times that weren't right, and who eventually things happened, which I'm going to explain about, because I think, I'm hoping that you'd like to know about this, because I'm speaking from direct experience of my son. But I'm also speaking because I know there are a lot of people out there, the same thing is happening over and over again. Thank you. For far too long, the most vulnerable people in our country have paid a very high price, including the ultimate, for whatever ills governments have to struggle with, that mean that this group's needs are neglected. Things have been getting worse for a long time now. This group cannot wait any longer for serious reform of the UK's care service. I want to use the word consequences. I'm going to give you an example of the terrible consequences of not acting on what we know of the now chronic crisis in our care system. My son Marcus had no voice. He couldn't speak. He didn't have spoken language. He communicated very powerfully with people, but he couldn't use words. So in any context where words were needed, I was his voice, and I'm still his voice. Marcus was severely learning disabled and autistic, needing care for most of his life. This care was occasionally wonderful, with some quite remarkable carers, but repetitively it was not, and he would suffer badly in some cases. Marcus had no early intervention. As a child, he was deemed to be ineducable. He spent too many of his young years in the aridity of long stay hospitals. But he did have a brief period of flourishing when people with learning disabilities are moved from the long stay hospitals into the community before the axe fell again. So much gained was slowly eroded, taken away. Consequent conditions led to Marcus breaking down several times when cash-strapped providers made expedient decisions, leading to severe staff disruptions, and eventually he lost his loved carers. He had to move. He slowly recovered with the care of excellent but exhausted senior staff at the new nursing home. But only a year later, they both took early retirement through ill health. Staff instability worsened following the expedient appointments of an inadequate, inexperienced, and too often absent non-nurse registered manager and an inexperienced nurse leader, both evidenced horrendously clearly in the coroner's court. One day, something happened that had shocking consequences. Marcus was left alone in the dining-cum-activities room. He saw on the table something used as a hide-and-seek game for another resident, a bowl of pink-dyed, uncooked rice with conkers hidden in it, with an inviting spoon. Marcus loved food, but latterly he was on a medically directed diet of adapted, pureed food only, due to a condition called dysphasia. His care plan had explicit instructions regarding dangers to him of eating unadapted food. Marcus thought what he saw in front of him was food. He managed to swallow some of the rice and two conkers. What happened was, predictably, the rice was aspirated into his lungs and set off a catastrophic infection. One conker went down into his stomach, from where it could not escape, and one stuck in his esophagus, wearing away the walls and preventing swallowing anything, including water. When finally discovered by staff, Marcus had the coloured rice coming out of his nose and mouth. Despite the known seriousness of this, a succession of mistakes was made. Finally, on the advice of an administrative clerk to the flapping nurse leader, an ambulance was called, which came very quickly. In brief, Marcus had 5 frightening for him, uncomfortable and painful days in hospital while doctors battled with the infection. But they didn't know about the conkers. He couldn't tell them. And nobody from the home told us or them that they had been part of the mix he had accessed. Their existence only emerged at his post-mortem. The hospital had no protocol for managing and safeguarding a person with a severe learning disability. I did not even request the hospital specialist learning disability nurse to help with reasonable adaptations in history taking, diagnosis, and treatment. On the 5th day, Marcus paid the ultimate price for all this neglect, from the decades-long government neglect to address the chronic crisis in the care system, to the underfunded local authority, to the not fit for purpose regulatory bodies, to the care provider making expedient decisions without reviewing the safeguarding implications, to the appointments for the nursing home of an inadequately qualified and often absent registered manager and the nurse on duty that day, to a hospital without a protocol for people with severe learning disability. The consequence of all this failure in provision and safeguarding, our beloved Marcus died. Marcus could not look out for his own safety, and it transpired he had little protection in law because there were simply no consequences for those found responsible for, in the coroner's words, the gross failure of care and neglect that caused his death. No consequences, nothing of significance. Please ask yourself a question. Is this okay? Did Marcus not matter? Did he have less rights to be protected from harm and from death than you or I? Marcus, this was not an isolated case. The researching and campaigning organisation Inquest has ever-developing information about preventable deaths in state care. They know of 18 cases before Marcus's death and 3 since, in a care setting from this one cause of death alone, in people with a learning disability. There are likely to be many more avoidable deaths from all causes. I need to do the research. The exceptional support the organisation Inquest gives to families of loved ones dying in state care is matched only by its focused research and campaigning, including their current plea for a national oversight mechanism as part of trying to prevent these deaths. We urgently need this government to find a way to rapidly address both the crisis in the care system responsible for conditions in which avoidable deaths happen, and the lack of consequences to organisations responsible for an avoidable death. Otherwise, we know these tragic deaths will just go on happening, and those needing care will continue to be unprotected in a discriminatory and utterly unacceptable way. Thank you.